Interpretivism is taking everyone's idea and combining it into one common truth. Interpretism to me is, as the word says, something that is made up of interpretations. So it's not just thinking that my way is right and your way is wrong, but that truth is something that is socially created, and that it is something that it can be true to you and can be true to you and is also true to me. So instead of it being something that is black and white, interpretivism is something that brings color to the world.
What is interpretivism? It is the reality and knowledge that are socially constructed by human beings. It is a person's ability to make sense of the world around them, to obtain the knowledge of their surroundings.
Because interpretivism is about social interpretation of ideas, it means that it would have to be something that requires more qualitative work. So therefore you can't just get simple data from questionnaires to truly understand something, but you'd have to do something like focus groups or interviews to get that one-on-one interaction, as well as to be able to get that individual experience, to be able to piece it together to get a broader picture. So you cannot separate humanity from the social interactions that they have. You would have to take on a more pluralistic approach when doing this sort of research, and therefore you would have to use relativism when looking at your work, as well as remember that your work is subjective. So just like you have the individual experiences of those that are around you, you would have to include your own interpretation, because yours isn't just drawing from fact, you're interpreting everyone else's interpretation of what is happening. Because it is very subjective in nature, when it comes to ethics you have to remember that your knowledge is not objective, that it is subjective to your interpretation as well, and that you're going to have to look at it through a naturalistic lens, because you can't just force your own opinions onto someone. You have to sit and observe and then interview them to further understand and deeper understand what is going on in their brain, because this method is all about taking a peek into the human psyche.
Okay, so how does it differ from the other paradigms? Interpretivism assumes that the meaningfulness of an individual is interpreted by that specific researcher, and they believe that this access is due to reality and is based on the different understandings of social constructs like language, like documentation, shared knowledge, artifacts. All these have an influence on how one interprets certain things.
Taking this over into the education context, I myself am a intermediate phase teacher, and the biggest thing I've had to learn since learning about interpretivism is that I am not the only source of knowledge within my classroom, but that knowledge is constructed with every single other person's perspective. So I might understand a topic one way, but each individual learner might understand it a different way, because each individual learner has their own life experiences. So this means that as a teacher I have to ensure that there are ample places for students to collaborate and to talk to each other and to just have discussions about the content, because you gain deeper, more authentic learning from getting each person's perspective and joining it together into one topic. So we are not creating parrots, but we are rather creating people that might not be able to say it word for word, but who can deeply understand it and apply it to their own lives.
Okay, so how does interpretivism relate to the classroom? So I myself am a visual arts and design high school teacher, and how I have experienced interpretivism, especially with regards to the practical projects that the learners do. For instance, the learners receive a brief in the beginning of a term, and then will be given a theme in which they can develop their own artworks. So let's say the theme is green, for instance. then it is so fascinating for me to see that every student, no two students will have the same artwork. Every student receives the same theme, however, no artwork is the same. So this just shows how these different individuals think differently, how they take their surroundings, their understandings, their beliefs, their knowledge of things, and then make it their own. Their artwork, their final artwork will be their own, based on how they interpret the world, or they interpret the theme for that instance. So as the art educator, my only role is to, moderate the learners and just make sure they do with what they have to do, collaborate with them, brainstorm like my knowledge, their knowledge, we bounce ideas off of each other. It is not parrot fashion, it is this engaging classroom. We work together to come up with a final idea that is ultimately their idea. I just manage to make sure that they're on the right track. So that's how I have experienced it in my classroom.